All right, now back with us here on Thursday Night Tailgate is former Steelers tackle Craig Wolfley. Let me give you some background on Craig. He is from Buffalo, New York, played his college ball at Syracuse, where he was a 4-year letterman and helped them to a victory in the 1979 Independence Bowl, Syracuse's first bowl victory in nearly 20 years. In 1999, he was named to the Syracuse University football all-century team. He was a fifth-round draft pick by my Pittsburgh Steelers and back in 1980 and played in the league from 80 to 1991 for the Steelers and the Vikings. Craig was voted to the Steelers all-century team as well, so 2 all-century teams for Craig. Away from football, Craig has competed in weightlifting, boxing, sumo wrestling, and martial arts. In 1981, he finished 5th in the World's Strongest Man competition. In 1985, he placed 2nd in the first professional sumo wrestling tournament held in North America, and he also holds a black belt in jiu-jitsu. You can hear Craig now broadcasting Steeler games along with former Steelers offensive lineman Tunch Ilkin and our friend Bill Hillgrove, and we are honored he is back with us tonight here on Thursday Night Tailgate. Hey, Craig, Chris, and Bob, thanks for coming back on the show.
Hey, Craig.
Hey, fellas, how you doing? Boy, that's a long intro, man. I don't know. I don't even know what to say about that other than the fact if you can name who the entertainment was at the Independence Bowl in Shreveport, Louisiana in 1979, I give you $10.
Wow, that's a tough one. Bob, you got a guess?
79 and at the Independence Bowl. Wow. I couldn't even guess, Craig. Let me throw a name out there.
San Diego Chicken. The San Diego Chicken. How long ago was that?
San Diego Chicken. Wow, good for you guys.
Oh, man.
Oh, my heavens, yes. Yes, that was a long time ago, brother.
Craig, I want to start tonight by getting your thoughts on, what's going on in and around the Steelers. First, some of the bigger news is, what's going to happen with Le'Veon Bell. It seems like, Steelers GM Kevin Colbert seems optimistic that they're going to get a deal done. But, I'm curious to get your thoughts, right? I mean, he wants big dollars. I mean, he's thrown out $17 million, big dollars like he's a wide receiver. If the Steelers go all in on a Le'Veon Bell, I mean, it seems like, they've got so many gaps on defense that there's just not going to be enough cap space to really address some of their other needs. Your thoughts, is that money well spent on bringing Le'Veon Bell back at that price tag?
Well, again, if you can get him a little bit off the big number and down a little bit more, and I believe that they're pretty optimistic that you can do it. Look, this cat is the best in the league, I think, if you talk about a true threat, whether it's by land or by air. This guy really does a great job. He's great at picking up blitzes, which I know you don't put $17 million in a guy to pick up blitzes, but he does it all. He's a tough kid. He's a terrific runner, an unusual runner. Like I've always said, he's about as different a runner as Dick Fosbury was when he brought the Fosbury flop to the high jump. I mean, he was just that much of a difference maker and a trendsetter in changing the style, the way running backs ran the ball. But look, you talk about a wide receiver. This guy's catching, 60 to 80 balls a year. I mean, he's a de facto number 2 wide receiver for the Steelers. So, he's up there in a way that you want him present, you want him on the field, and you want to be able to feed him the ball a lot because he is that good. Now, the big question mark is how long does he have? Because one thing is that when you get fed the ball a lot, your top end ain't real long.
And Craig, let's flip over to the other side of the ball. I wanted to get your thoughts and your assessment on some of the guys that the Steelers have brought in, higher draft picks, the Bud Dupree, who was a number 1, Artie Burns, who was a number 1, Sean Davis,
right,
who was a 2. When you look at those guys, right, your assessment of them, they felt like they took a step backwards last season. Is it just a matter of time and being patient with them as they develop, or should Steeler fans be worried about those 3?
Well, I think they comprise the core of what you expect to see, being the upgrade, upgrading that defense. And I would say for Sean Davis, it was 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, but he kept making some movement forward. He's got some big play potential. This kid can hit the snot out of you. I mean, he's a slobber knocker. He'll exchange DNA with you on a hit. He's that much of a powerful guy that'll come up and drill you. Bud Dupree is the enigma. I thought before the season started that Bud would be maybe the next great, guy in the outside linebacker, the Joey Porter, in the likeness of the Clark Hagans, the James Harris, and all this. And it just never seemed to materialize. Bud's got the ability. He's, the guy's built like a Jamaican samurai. The guy's strong and powerful. And what you keep looking for him to run the arc a little bit better. He gets himself too far up the field, probably 80% of the time. And he's got to learn to tame that arc and have better gription coming around. So whether it's the uppercut, whether it's being able to come back with the club, and take an inside line, something's got to be added to his game to give him a better outside pass rush. When he runs a twist, he does a nice job when he's the trailer, when he comes around, and not the penetrator, but the trailer, he comes around on the inside, he seems to find his way through traffic better than when he just runs on a straight pass rush running the arc. I've often heard Joey Porter say to him, Bud, you got to have a plan when you come up. You can't just come up and go. And I think part of the problem is Bud's got to have a better plan when he gets up there and decides to rush. Artie Burns didn't get better, but he didn't get worse. I think Artie is just in one of those situations where it's a process of being able to play more along the lines of what he's capable and what he wants to do and where in his comfort level. I think sometimes he gets caught looking, and he's got to be able to break that habit. It's going to be interesting to see because Carnell Lake has left. And you've got Tom Bradley, a great coach, defensive mind coming from UCLA. Of course, he's vintage Penn State guy. And so we'll see if that can make a difference. But those three guys are really going to be key if this defense is going to move up the charts and get her done.
And Craig, if you're Kevin Colbert looking into the draft, right, after inside linebacker, I think everyone agrees that that's where they got to go first if it's available. But
right.
What other position do you think the Steelers have got to target after inside linebacker?
Are you talking on defense or overall?
Anywhere. Defense, offense, where do you think they got to look to fill some gaps?
Well, the number one is Kevin announced that what everybody already knew, the obvious, that Ryan Shazier was not going to play this year. And basically we're all hoping the same thing, that Ryan, it would be awesome to see him resume playing in a couple of years, but if he can no more than walk away, with some bank, that would in itself just be awesome. But to see him come back and be able to recoup his playing prowess and all the functions and powers that he used to have, the athleticism that he had, that would be awesome. And I root for this kid because this is a guy that you just love. I mean, what he brought to the team, his football mind. The thing that I loved about this kid was he is this unbelievable athlete he could run, stride for stride with the wide receivers. To see him come up and plug the A gap or B gap and all these things. But I've had the opportunity to sit in the in one of the offices down on the south side there and watch film with him. And you just try to get a little understanding, and just watch him and talk to him a little bit and see what he sees. And it's interesting because he's got a great football mind. And so the fact that he was around toward the end of last year and in some ways going to be involved this year, I think is going to be awesome. But of course, there are other issues that you got to come up with. And so you got to come up with an inside linebacker, as we talked about. Vince Williams is a good linebacker, but how do you replace a guy like Ryan Shazier? It's not going to be easy. So they've got to get an answer there. You're going to have probably another situation where you got to do something with the safety situation. Mike Mitchell seemed to have some issues in range coverage last year. Knowing Mike Mitchell, he might have been playing injured. Who knows? I mean, this is a guy who played with a torn groin when he first came to the Steelers and was getting shot in the groin all season long. Anybody that can do that, brother, I take my hat off to them. That is extremely painful. And, you get that done. And then on the offense, they've got to be able to come up with a consistent number two receiver. And Martavis, you're looking for, what is that going to happen? Is that going to be here, or is he going to be elsewhere? I don't know. Juju Smith-Schuster is an exciting guy that, is going to add so very much. I mean, when you've got AB, you've got the standard. So everybody else is kind of like, you got the king in his court, so you're going to be a guy that's a number 2 or 3 wide receiver. So how that all works out is going to be interesting, especially with Todd Haley moving on over to Cleveland and Randy Fichtner up. So I think offensively the issue is really already in-house. It's going to be who's going to step up as the number 2 wide receiver other than Lev Bell as a de facto, as I talked about, and be able to consistently get some things done there. But also defensively, we need some growth product from this, from those young people we're talking about, and then the safety position, and see if they can get some more speed there.
Bob, questions for Craig?
Yeah, it's great to speak with you again, Craig. And more on that topic, Craig, is there a sense of urgency right now in Pittsburgh due to Roethlisberger kind of winding down his career, hinting last year that his days might be numbered, and Tomlin, of course, them coming up short again? What's the deal, Craig? I mean, as far as, is there a true sense of urgency? Are they waiting for Tom Brady to retire? What's the deal in Pittsburgh right now?
Well, the deal is that you were 13-3. Let's not forget 13-3.
Yeah.
However it happened, you finished. This is a guy, Mike Tomlin. The guy hasn't had a losing season. So, I've heard a lot of crowing about, this and that. Well, look, man, you got to get to the dance before you can talk about winning the dance. So the fact is, you've got an excellent team. You've got a window that's shrinking. You better believe it with Ben, because, each and every year, it's hard, because if you're not a maniac-driven guy, if you've got a substantial amount of money in the bank and you've got your wife and kids, the tame life is starting to look good. And I would think for a lot of guys, when you see the success Tony Romo has had on TV, they're starting to go, that's looking pretty good right about now. So you've got these situations that are occurring, and you want to get the most out of Big Ben, because franchise quarterbacks, they only come along once or twice in a lifetime. I was there with Terry Bradshaw, and I've been able to watch every game that Ben has played, and you got to make the most of it. And I think there's an increasing sort of pressure coming about that the window's closing, and boy, you got to lock and load. But again, because the standard is the standard in Pittsburgh and the Super Bowl is a thing, it's a come up short thing. But at the same time, there are worse situations where, just a state over. I know there's an awful lot of Browns fans that are weeping and gnashing of teeth and howling at the moon. So it could be worse. Let's put it that way.
And Craig, as far as, when I think of your own career, I was just looking at some of your past stops, Orchard Park High School, born in Buffalo, Syracuse, Pittsburgh, living in Minnesota. I mean, you knew cold weather, like a lot of us here in the Northeast. I mean, that's the first thing I think is Craig knows cold weather. Did you ever get used to it, Craig?
Always. I mean, I was a fat guy. You're out there running around. You can run all day in fat guy weather, man. Are you kidding me? I used to play with just a cut-off T-shirt underneath. I mean, that's adrenaline is a wonderful thing. Now, I remember way back in Archbold Stadium, if you watched The Express with Ernie Davis, you saw, Archbold, that thing was built in 1907 or something like that. The heaters, we had heaters. You know what our heaters were? They were hobo heaters. They were garbage cans with charcoal in the bottom. All right?
Wow.
I remember playing a game in Syracuse, snowing like crazy. Two things happened. Number one, we came out, we warmed up, we went back in the locker room, and a blizzard hit. So we came out, and you couldn't see from about the 30-yard line in, you couldn't see to the back of the end zone. Our quarterback, Billy Hurley, got scrambled, had to throw the ball away. He threw it to Art Monk, who later on went to have a great career in the Hall of Famer with the Washington Redskins. Sure. And there's Art Monk all by himself in the back of the end zone, caught the ball. Billy didn't even know it because you couldn't see it was snowing so much. So I come over to the sidelines, freezing cold. It's cold as all get up. There's no heaters there but for our hobo heaters. I'm talking to my offensive line coach. I hang my foot over the garbage can, and unbeknownst to me, I lowered it a little bit too far. Now I got spot builts on these old leather curmudgeon shoes, right? Yeah. So as I'm talking to my offensive line coach, he starts to smell burning leather. Look, my shoe is smoking. Couldn't even feel it. So, yeah, I got used to cold weather, brother. That's just part of the gig when you're a Northeasterner.
For sure.
Craig, you mentioned seeing Terry Bradshaw. You were there in '83 when Bradshaw's
Right.
one and only game that year against the Jets. He threw a couple of
Right.
touchdown passes and then the elbow went. What do you remember about Terry's last game?
Well, I remember it was at Shea Stadium. It was the last game that the Jets played at Shea Stadium. It was December 15th, 1983. All season long, we'd struggled. Cliff Stout, the heir apparent, had trouble. And, Terry had not been able to throw the ball. And towards the end of the season, he was, he and Myron Cope, the legendary broadcaster, they brought in a mynah bird to sit on Terry's elbow. Supposedly had marvelous healing powers. Well, that was, didn't fly real well with Chuck Knoll, but he and that being Bradshaw and Cope, they had a good kind of funny thing going on TV with that. So we were going to play that last game in Shea Stadium. And I remember the whole week long, it was just pounded into us. Don't let Brad get hit. No matter what, he can't take a hit. So if you've got to tackle a guy, you tackle the guy. You do not give up a sack or a hit on Terry Bradshaw. So the first thing I remember was we came out, and Terry just throws the ball like a maniac in the first quarter and a half. He throws 2 touchdown passes. He hits Greg Garrity, Calvin Sweeney. We're on the sidelines, and Tunch Ilkin, my teammate, he says to Bradshaw, he goes, "Terry, I thought we were going to run the ball. I mean, what are you doing? You're throwing it like crazy." And Terry says, "Yeah, you know me. I ain't no mailman." So he says, "I'm a gunslinger, baby." So he's throwing the ball, and he threw one too many and popped that elbow. And so he finished out, and the game was over. And I remember talking to Marty Lyons, the great Jet defensive tackle.
Yeah.
And so we were sitting there, and the fans started pouring out of the stadium. And they, as they're running by, they're like, they're taking everything. I mean, people some guy had a drill and was drilling in the concrete, getting his seat out that he'd had in Shea Stadium. And the fans started getting closer, and all of a sudden they're running by and they're trying to snatch a helmet or a chin strap or something. Marty says, "You know what? These are New York fans. We better get moving." We were off and running. So the next thing I know, we're in the locker room, and, back in these old stadiums, they didn't have press rooms like coaches would have to address the press like nowadays they do. You go to a separate room and all that. So as I come out of the locker room, I'm inside the tunnel inside Shea Stadium, and I'm walking by, and Chuck Knoll has got a press conference with about 20 press guys around him, all microphones jammed forward. So as I'm standing there, I'm looking to which way to go to get on the bus, and all of a sudden I hear this noise coming down the hallway. And I look over, and I see this probably 2 or 3 maybe of New York's finest. And they got some guy, and some guy is he's wrestling with the policeman, and he's, they're kind of giving him a little bit of the business here. And he comes up, and they stop right in front of it. There's all this noise. This guy's yelling, and the cops are trying to control him and everything. And they get right by the press conference, and there's so much noise, all the press corps stops, and Chuck Knoll stops and looks over, and this guy's right by there. He looks up, he sees Coach Knoll, he says, "Coach Knoll, that was a great game." And then he starts wrestling with the cops again. It was so funny. I just loved it, man. That was classic old 80s, 90s NFL football, a little different.
And Craig, being drafted in 1980, you come into the Steelers on the tail end of the careers of some of the legendary guys, the Joe Greens and L.C. Greenwoods and Jack Lamberts and all of those guys. What was it like for you coming in? First of all, you're having to try to, in practice, trying to deal with those guys. What was it like trying to come in and fit in a team that was full of legends?
It was just such an incredible thing, up at St. Vincent College. You're up there, and the first day, because we always, back then, of course, the rookies and guys that ended up on the IR the year before, you came in a week before the veterans reported. So you had a full week of doubles already that you were undergoing before the veterans even got there. So I remember sitting in the dining hall, and the veterans were reporting on this day, and we'd been there a week already, all beat up and everything else. But I'm sitting there, and as I'm watching, the door opens, and in walks the blonde bomber himself. It's Terry Bradshaw with a red man cap on and a hunk of tobacco in his cheek, and everything comes in. Then the door closes and swings back open. It's Franco Harris and Johnny Stallworth. You know, I'm like, I'm getting gaga, and before I know it, I see Jack Lambert and Mel Blount and Donnie Shell walk in, and then it's Jack Ham, and it's, you know, it's Joe Green. I almost freaked out when I saw Joe Green come in, and I'm like, oh, you got to be kidding me! And then John Kolb and Lynn Swan and then one of my heroes. I mean, Mike Webster walks in. He's got arms like legs and legs like people, you know. And he walks in. You're like, oh, wow. And my first thought was, you know, I don't know whether to go, you know, come up and try to say, hi guys, I'm, you know, Craig Wolfley, or you say, can I have an autograph, please? I mean, I don't know. What do you do? I mean, it was just, these guys are legends. They're legends, you know. Yeah. I mean, so. That's the way it was. Jack Ham, jeepers, my goodness, you know. Oh, it was great, and I can tell you that first practice, and I'll leave you with a little story here. That first practice there, man, the first day we ran a P39 Geo as a left guard. I'm pulling out. I got to get deeper. Split backs. Fullback hits the outside linebacker, and the pulling guard has got to clear, and he's got to get the corner support. Well, Ron Johnson was in man coverage. He runs off on a go route with a guy. So you got to turn up and get the safety. Well, I'd heard of Donnie Shell, and I knew of Donnie Shell, but I really met Donnie Shell on that play. I turned up. Donnie hit me so hard, I kid you not, fellas. He hit me right in the chest. He got me when I was just turning up, and he just hit me. They used to call him the human torpedo. He hit me so hard, I one-hopped like 8 feet back right to the feet of Chuck Knoll. I kid you not. I rolled over. Chuck is looking down at me, and I mean, I just got mulched. I just got crushed. Donnie set a St. Vincent College body tossing record with me. That's how bad a hit that was. And I remember Chuck looked at me, and he said, that's not very impressive, you know. And I'm slowly getting to my feet, and I'm going, are you kidding me? Did you see that? That was about 8 feet.
That's great.
I was thinking, man, I thought that was very impressive myself. Oh, man.
Wow, what a great story. And Craig, before we let you go, let our listeners know, how can they follow you, stay up to date with all the great things you're doing? Because you and Tunch do some great things to benefit the homeless. How can we stay in touch with all the great things you're doing, whether it's online or over social media?
Well, I'm social media stupid. So my problem is that you can go to CraigWolfley.com. That's run by some folks who are very kind to me and help me out. And during the season, you know, we're on iHeart. We have the 970 ESPN radio during the season and so forth and all that. But I guess CraigWolfley.com would be the best way to figure out what's going on.
Well, Craig, thank you so much for taking time out of your night to come back and be a part of the show. You're fantastic. We hope you'll come back sometime and share more of your stories and insights with you. We have such a great time when you're a part of the show.
Always a blast.
Well, you are very kind, and I'm very grateful. I'm excited because I'm in the process of writing a book, so we're having fun, and I think it's just there'll be a lot of fun stories to share. So sometime down the future, but certainly would love to be back with you. It's always fun to talk old-time football.
We appreciate it very much, Craig. Thank you for your time. All the best to you and your family. We look forward to catching up with you again real soon.
You betcha, fellas. Thanks again.
Okay, great.
See you, Craig.
Thank you.
That is former Steelers offensive lineman Craig Wolfley. What great stories, Bob. And not that you wouldn't have expected that he would have great stories based on, you know, the talent and the teams that he, you know, played on and was a part of, but and his insights, you know, being around the Steelers still to this day. But great stories. Funny guy. Really enjoy him.
Yeah, when you haven't talked to him in a while, Chris, you forget what kind of storyteller he is. And having played 12 years, mostly with the Steelers, he's got a ton of them. And we're always honored to speak with Craig.
Yes, we are. All right, we've got our next guest, Doug Nettles, hanging on the line. We're going to get to Doug on the other side of this real quick station break.